I'm Jim Collison and live from the Gallup studios here in Omaha, Nebraska. This is Gallup's Theme Thursday, Season 4, recorded on May 3rd, 2018. Theme Thursday is a Gallup webcast series that dives deep into the CliftonStrengths themes one at a time. Today's theme is command. If you have questions, comments, or contributions during this live webcast, we do have a chat room that's available for you right below the main video window. Just poke down there. It says login, bottom left-hand corner to the chat room. Hit that, choose the guest account, put your name in where it says guest and the number, sign in, and love to have your questions during the webcast. Particularly important in our post show, which you can only get if you join us live. Come out and you can ask us your questions in the chat room. Don't forget, if you're listening to the recorded version or have questions about custom strengths coaching solutions, you can send us an email as well, coaching@gallup.com. And you can also get all the information you ever need about strengths at a Gallup Strength Center. Just go to gallupstrengthcenter.com for all your CliftonStrengths coaching resources and training needs. You can also catch the video and both streaming and downloadable audio for offline listening. We call that podcasting, which is getting super popular. You can get all of that done at our coach's blog. Go to coaching.gallup.com. Then don't forget, if you listen in the Apple podcast app, you can rate, review, and subscribe there. You can get this automatically. If you're on YouTube, you can subscribe, hit that notification bell. You'll get notified every time we go live if you're on the live channel, or every time we post if you're on the recorded channel. Great way to stay up to date what's going on YouTube. And if you're on Spreaker, follow us. You'll get the same notifications there if you're listening that way. Just all great ways to automatically get the podcast. Maika Leibbrandt is our host today. Maika works as a workplace consultant here at Gallup. I haven't said this in a while, Maika. You're my best friend at work and my favorite. Yes. Welcome to Theme Thursday.
Thanks. Good to be here.
Yeah, good to have you back. And we are talking a little bit of command today. And so why don't we just get started? We were kind of chit-chatting in the beginning. Let's just dig right in. When we think of command, what do we think about?
You know what? We think about getting it done, cutting through the noise and getting down to business. So the brief for command, I think about being courageous, persuasive, assertive. I think there's a social element to it. It's an influencing theme. So unintimidated. And I think intimidation usually is about other people, but command has a courage about that. Also pretty decisive, maybe socially brave. You might think of somebody who's an activist, and by that I'm trying to figure out a great way to say not middle of the road on things that are important. They can really take a stance, and in a way that makes other people want to follow that stance. They can, I think, create openings for new ideas because they are pretty boldly supportive of ideas or causes or other people.
I love that idea of not middle of the road. I think,
I wish there was a word for that. What's the best word for not middle of the road?
But it's such a good indicator, I think, when we think about this theme of there's no wishy-washy. It's not, there's no questions. It's kind of, they know, right? And they're standing on that. When we think about command at its best, like what does command bring to us that's the best of it?
The best of command, I think, is knowing when to take charge and doing it effortlessly. Command, again, every theme, when it's a real talent, when it's something that's truly dominant for you, happens without you trying. It happens sort of when you wake up in the middle of the night. But command at its best is that ability to have other people follow you without even trying. So it's serving others, I think, also by being a voice or an advocate for other people, because you've got some of that social courage, that bravery to stand up and say what needs to be said. Doing that for folks who maybe don't have quite as much or don't have a voice is a great example of command at its best. Think about it also as an educational tool. Folks with high command can really further a cause or educate people, help somebody see things a different way, perhaps that they wouldn't have seen without you.
Love the chat room. They're trying to come up with other words besides not middle of the road.
Well, you know what? Originally I was thinking extreme, but that sounded a little too, I don't know, uncontrolled, a little too messy. But it is about the ability not to guess where you stand. Maybe it's transparent. Might be a word. I don't
Resolve
know.
is another one that's out there in the chat room. I kind of like that. Again, the key is not the words we say, but in coaching or in yourself, if you have high command, it's finding that word that's right for you and how to
Right.
make that productive, right? I mean, that's really the key of what we're trying to do here. Micah, this season we've been kind of talking about, we didn't plan on it, but we've been talking about how it sorts. And how do you think, we talk a lot about, maximizer and how it sorts to things and some of those things. When you think about command, how do you think, and I'm just throwing this out to you, we didn't plan this. How do you think command sorts?
I think command knows. It's interesting. We did belief last week, and so I'm trying to make a distinction between command and belief. But I think command sort of knows when leadership is needed, knows when resolution, and by that I mean resoluteness is needed, and can almost sense when there's a void of leadership or a void of decisiveness, and can fill that void. So maybe command sorts to a leadership need. Is that a thing? I don't want to say command sorts to void. They command sort of sorts between alternatives by looking for that stance. Again, it's an influencing theme, so you're looking for sorting to where guidance is needed, or to where people are looking for a decision. What would you say? You've got
Yeah.
command kind of high.
Well, and I think for me, 17, which is pretty middle now. It was higher. The very first time I took Strengths Finder, it was a little bit higher. I always saw it as the ability to take leadership when none exists. That was, for me, how it kind of sorted for me. In other words, I would get into a situation and say, is there someone in charge? If the answer was yes, I could submit. If it was no, I could take charge. It was one of those, is this a situation where someone needs to take the lead? I could not go into chaos situations with no leadership and let that just sit. I cannot be a part of a group that is leaderless. If it doesn't have a leader, I will become it, right? I'll ask for permission because I want people to like me. But right? So for command really kind of sorted for me in that kind of way. I don't know.
It's direction. I think a lot of people in the chat room are talking about direction, and that's accurate. So there's actually question 99 on our certification exam at one point. Hopefully by the time you listen to this, it's been resolved and changed. But at one point, I know our certification exam really well. And question 99 out of 100 was you had to identify the difference between command and responsibility. And it was a situation where somebody was taking ownership really quickly. The right answer was responsibility, because responsibility wants to own and say, I've got this. Command, I would often help people understand the difference there, is going to say, you've got this. And command is that ability to say, all right, in a meeting, we've got a couple different things. Command's going to say, okay, you take this, you take that, and we'll move forward. So maybe command sorts to direction.
Yeah, and Bill says if there's no leader, he'll fill the vacuum.
Yeah.
And I get that with command. That's one of those things I think that where it sorts well. For people high in command, what should they do more of? What are some activities they can do more? By the way, my daughter has just checked into the chat room.
Hey,
so Sammy is joining us.
I think answer that call for a challenge, which means listen for a challenge as well. Look for things that scare other people. Look for things that might intimidate other people. I think there's a beauty in command that is the fact that it's an influencing theme. And there's some thread of just about all influencing themes where you can kind of read the room, read the audience, read other people. And what command gives you is that ability to understand, like we said, where does leadership or direction needed? But I think also look for, where are other people not stepping up? Where is their fear? Where is their intimidation? And how can you step up to that kind of a challenge? Also, stretch yourself by paying attention to when you feel like you're in command mode. Maybe, how do you know? What are the clues that makes your spidey senses tingle? How do you know when command is needed? It might be when you sense fear. It might be when you sense clarity. Be good and be better at following that feeling, understanding when is it the time that you need the podium, that you are really good at saying something that moves other people forward. Does that make sense, Jim? Do you feel like you can sort of have that command sense of when you're in that mode?
I think so. And sometimes I think people high in command doubt themselves early. This is where you can grow and practice. Mm-hmm. When you feel like you need to take over, follow that feeling. it's probably right. Doesn't mean it's always right. Doesn't mean you're always good at it. Like you need, this is a skill you need to hone. How can I step in this situation and take this group to where they need to go and not be pushy or not be too authoritative or not be divisive or not be a bully, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not command. Like those do not help groups be successful. And so think about when you got that gut instinct of like, ooh, this is leaderless, or oh, this needs some direction. You get that in your gut. You sense, I think, that it's not there, right? And you can act on it.
And it doesn't always have to be you're owning the project, you're leading it from the front. Sometimes that kind of leadership that command offers is asking a question that nobody else has asked that helps provide some clarity, or offering another idea that nobody has had that helps enhance a project. Sometimes it's being a good salesman. So I think another thing that you could raise your hand to do is opportunities to practice your salesmanship. Think about what stories are going to help sell the point, or what words really resonate and help win other people to your ideas. I think there's a candid nature to command that I really love, that I'd love to see folks with command practice more often. So how do you explicitly share that candid ability to maybe shine a light on what's right about other people? How do you explicitly tell people that they're seen? How do you find ways to tell them that they're noticed or they're important? And just about to break into a Broadway song from Dear Evan Hansen, but how do you help people understand that you see them and in what way you see them? And I think that in that nature, there's a developmental, or maybe a defender or protector. We've used those words in the past when we talk about command, where you can stand up and you can tell people what you see that's great about them. And you can do it in a way that's candid, that doesn't feel fluffy, that feels very direct and to the point, because that's what command can do with anything. Imagine what that feels like when it's pointed toward revealing to people their greatest talents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How can I stand up for the powerless? Right? How can I bring right to the wrong in this? I think that's really where the superpower, it's more than just filling a void, but it's adding value in leadership. And I love that idea of boldness, right? Of being bold. And I think the superpower is being bold in what is right. And that's not always easy, by the way. That's not being right in those situations is not always clear. This is where it takes the courage to do it. And you might be wrong. And that happens, that happens too. But wow, if you've got that gut feeling and you've got that theme, I'm going to say practice and act upon it for sure. What kind of environments support it, Maika? How can we put ourselves in these kinds of environments to make us better?
I think command needs some kind of conflict, some kind of confrontation. Now that could be just the barrier of going from not knowing to knowing. That is sort of the learning curve. Or it could be more direct conflict. It could be differing opinions or differing products or competitors. But I think about command sort of like there's an advertisement on my TV now a whole lot about a swimming pool that's really small, so it'll fit in anybody's backyard, but it's got like a motor in it, so it creates waves, and you can swim laps without needing a lap, sort of like a treadmill version of a swimming pool. Command needs some sort of pushback. It needs waves. So look for or maybe define, where is there some pushback? Where is perhaps there's some confrontation that'll help you create some forward progress. You can also do that on your own by inviting honest feedback. Now that could be through surveys, through evaluations. It could be through partners where you just say, hey, I want you to help sharpen my idea about this, and create that space where you say, okay, today we're going to spend the next 20 minutes talking about what could go wrong with my idea. And you can create that safe space for other people to give you that pushback. You'll hear in season 1, I was listening to Al Winsman, who I work with quite a bit and who actually has command in his top 5. And I love his command. And he'll talk about the fact that oftentimes people with command, by their very nature, don't tend to invite pushback because they're so resolute and so direct. And that can not feel inviting for other people to say, okay, I think you're wrong about X, Y, Z. If you're somebody with command, you can create that environment by saying, okay, today we talk pushback. Today, tell me what else could be better about this. Culturally, I work with an organization who has this habit of internally giving each other feedback about 2 very specific things. Every single time they get together, they talk about what they love about it and what could be better about that idea or that meeting or that interaction with a client. And I think creating that kind of space for yourself, it can be a fantastic investment in the command talent.
I also think it's super productive where that conflict creates clarity. I think we need to be really clear about that. That conflict, in the sense of just creating conflict, is not the goal here. Stepping into a group and creating massive conflict because you have command, I'm not sure that's necessarily the most productive use of it. Right? We need to be creating clarity in that conflict so the group can move forward. Right?
Yeah, think about it as building a bridge through command. I'm going to use this conflict to package it up in nice little bricks, and I'm going to use that conflict to bridge us somewhere. Dominica in the chat room says, "Just be real." I think that's a really great part of command. I'm not going to create conflict to upset you. I want everybody to just be real so that we can bridge us to somewhere better.
Yeah, it does become a little passive aggressive device though sometimes, and just that term, just saying, like I'm being real, I'm just saying, but it becomes this passive aggressive, like I can say whatever I want because it's the truth. And in groups, that's not always true. Like just because you can say it doesn't mean you always should. And so, Mike, I mean, there is that negative side to it. Just because it can be said doesn't mean it should be said. And I think this is that growth in command of knowing strategically the right way to say things, that sorting, the right time and place to say things boldly to move a group forward. If it's moving them backwards, I've got some questions on whether that's really working or not.
And I think it's also using your other themes and your own maturity to know when your command can be best. So just because you can push back effectively doesn't mean that you have to on every topic or with every partner or on every project. Maybe it's thinking about where do you want to be better? What topics do you want to be an expert about? What interests you or what's going to benefit your customer most? And pushing back there and practicing that sort of selective command. I know folks with real mature, great command that I really admire, and I don't find that they're always the first person to push back. But that if you perhaps align with your values or align with your goals, that's a place that you sort of aim that pushback piece. And command and pushback are not the same thing. Command is a theme that's going to be there all the time, whether or not you're saying, "Hey, I want to explore this conflict a little bit." Command is not about conflict. It's about decisiveness. And I think those are two different things.
Yeah, no, right on. What do you think it's not? We've talked a lot about what it is. What about what it's not?
This is the let it go portion. I think worry less about the graceful art of subtlety. If you have command, you're better off when you're offering the beauty of certainty. You don't need to worry about getting a point across without saying what needs to be said. I think you'll trip up if you try to cover up your opinions. Instead, find ways to lean into what you really mean. I had a journalism professor who helped me become a much better writer by asking that question. I would find myself trying to use, I don't know, if different ways to say something or flowery language or language that was explicit to the situation or the industry. And she would always just come by my desk and say, "What is it you're really trying to say?" And when I stepped back from typing and just said it out loud, she'd say, "Okay, then say that." And sort of that ability to get in tune with the candid nature of yourself for command, I think is really great.
Yeah, the truth almost always comes out in frustration. It's easier when we're calm and collective. We can butter it up and make it, as woo communication, sometimes I like to butter that up and make it flowery and feel good. But in conflict, the real truth comes out. And so it's a good opportunity to kind of check yourself in that situation. What am I really trying to say here, right? I think that's a good exercise. When working with command, what can I expect?
I think you can expect certainty. If you're working with somebody with high command, they might always sound like they have the answer. But that's how they work through things. They probably develop opinions and test them out. And because of their presence, command has a presence. In fact, it's the short definition is it's this resounding, beautiful sort of ability to influence and attract folks. But because of that presence, it can sound like their mind's already made up. Don't be afraid to ask questions or maybe even offer pushback or offer just another way to think about something. Sometimes folks with high command will sort of land on an opinion and it'll sound like it's solid, but they're probably always willing to sort of think through that and to think, oh gosh, could there be a different way that we could do that? But it's not going to sound like they are. It's going to sound like they're very certain, and they can be very certain. You might just want to explore that with them. You can also expect persuasiveness. They can be your champion for winning people to your cause or to your idea or for winning customers. I think look to them at times when decisions need to be made, and give them the opportunity to really own something and not really have to wait and ask for permission to be in charge. Also expect opinions. They're going to have them, so ask for their opinion.
Yeah, they're going to have opinions for sure. Hey, oh, that's not a bad thing. When we think about recognizing, again, my favorite question of the series, like when we think about recognizing them, we know in our data, this idea of recognition is super important. If I'm trying to recognize someone with a command, what are some great ways to do it?
I'd love for you to recognize the effect of their assertiveness. Recognize what kind of an environment that creates, and talk about the emotional environment that their command leaves in its way. You might think about saying things like, "Hey, your decisiveness makes it safe for us here," or maybe "We really trust your guidance." Think about the emotional effect that command has, because it's typically, I think, it's not middle of the road. To come back to our struggle with finding a word for that, it makes a difference, and it makes probably a pretty noticeable impact. Also, look for consistency to identify the intersection between command and values. What I mean by that is look for times when they are um, consistently stepping up for the same idea that might be a clue to their values. So, what do they always do well? You might recognize them in extremes. When do you know for certain that they're going to stand up for something? And you can think about that by thinking about, gosh, if I'm going to come across in a meeting with a new idea, and all of a sudden this person with command pops into my head as going to be the first person who has a question, that might be a clue to a place where they're standing up for something that they value. So recognize times that they always stand up as a great way to really get to what's important to them.
You know, in the chat room, if you join us live, there's sometimes a conversation within a program going on here. We won't read it all, but there's some great conversation going on right now in our chat room. A great reason to come out and join us live and to get some added value out there. So appreciate you guys and all the stuff that you're putting in there. We'll try and cover some of it. If you got some great questions, we'll try to cover some of that here in the post show. How do we stretch command? What are some things, Maika, we can do to kind of stretch them out?
I think you can get to know the causes and ideas that they find are most important and give them the chance to fight for them. So give them a platform to stand up for things that they're looking for. Also, consider people who might need their kind of certainty. You could think about that as sort of a servant leadership opportunity to stretch command. How could that person with command be a great mentor, be a great advocate, be a great teacher or educator for people who need it?
Yeah, I like this next question when we think about partnering, and I want to think about it in leading too, because if I'm leading someone who is high in command, how can I best support them? How can I partner with them in some of the work we're doing?
Offer honesty, offer clarity. Don't be afraid to package up a message before you send it. I think have direct conversations and make time and space for talking through options and opinions. And maybe even create. Okay, so this is going to be a metaphor. I don't know if it works. High ideation communication. I'm just going to throw it out. My preschooler is on an inhaler, and it's hard to tell a 2-year-old to inhale. So it's a breathing apparatus, and you have to click down the medicine, and it sort of does its magic thing, and then he's supposed to inhale really deep. But because he's 2, and when you say inhale, he doesn't know what that means, and when you say go like this, it just makes the sound with an exhale. They create what's called a spacer. And it's a long tube. I think about it as like a hallway that goes on the outside of this inhaler. So you now, instead of going directly into his mouth and into his lungs, it's got this one-way valve that instead of having to inhale, all he has to do is have a tight seal on the other end and just take 10 breaths in or out. And so it makes it a lot easier for him to access this great medicine. I think if you are here I go. Now here's the connection. Thanks for sticking with me. If you're going to partner with somebody with high command, create that spacer. Create that hallway where there is an opportunity to evaluate opinions and to think about ideas and to stand up for what's important and to be decisive. But if you can create that space, so that might mean give somebody command the idea to look at something before it has an important deadline, or when there's a high opinion and emotions are running tight, create a spacer by saying we're going to have some time to talk through this in a place where we can just throw our opinions at the wall, and then we're going going to leave those opinions in that room and take something out that we're all on agreement for. Create a spacer for them. That might be through a meeting, that might be through time. But if you can think about having that sort of element of trust where you can throw opinions out, you can offer pushback. I think that everybody's going to come out better on the other side, because what that person with command is going to offer is some real clarity to you, and what you can offer is an opportunity to sharpen that clarity.
Yeah, there's been a lot of chat going on about PC conversations. In other words, saying things, I don't, back to kind of our honesty, like speaking the truth, being honest. And a lot of the folks are kind of like, yeah, I don't like the politically correct, that PC stands for politically correct conversation. In other words, saying what needs to be said. I do want to caution, in all the group work that I've done, I've had some situations, Maika, where I can be blunt and like, guys, let's just get to the point. Ladies, gentlemen, let's get to the point here. Here's what it is. And yet I work in some circles with governments or with city leaders or civic leaders where I think it is important, even though I want to push things forward, I can't just push hard and expect to have the same success I can in a group that might know or trust me. And I have to have some savvy in that. And I think command, that's back to that sorting idea, that the maturity in that is knowing your audience. When I went to a Christian liberal arts school and I spoke one time, and a professor pulled me aside, and he said, Jim, I need you to exegete your audience, which is just a fancy way of saying you need to understand who you're talking to before you talk. Right. And so I don't want to get anybody thinking like I have high command. I can just plow through things and say whatever I want to say as long as it moves things forward. I think that's not going to, there's some environments that's not going to work, Maika.
Well, and it's not the definition of command either. I think probably a lack of patience with politically correctness might be a byproduct of command, but it's not one and the same, right? Command is that beautiful ability to read your audience and direct them.
Yeah. No, and I think that reading part is the practiced, learned, understand, stop and listen. Where am I at? And what could be most effective? How can I deploy this command in an environment that moves people forward regardless of the situation? And I might need to morph a little bit to be able to get that influence piece in and get it done. I can't go into my civic where where I sit on the board in a civic thing. I can't just go in there and say, guys, we're going to do this. Now I can do that here. At Gallup, I've been in meetings where I can do that here because the trust level is different, right? The expectation levels are different. So I think it's really, really important in this, and really in all of these, right? That we understand who are we dealing with here. And so I really love this partnering idea because it makes us stop and say, how can I be the best partner? That doesn't mean I always get what I want, but how can I be the best partner? Right. I appreciate that. Hey, speaking of partnering, we got some great challenges we want to partner with you on. We're taking these to the Facebook groups during the week. So facebook.com/group/called-to-coach is where you go. Maika's got this on her Instagram page. What's the Strengths Talk, right?
Yeah, at Strengths Talk on Instagram. And in fact, today I decided to try something different. I leaked it right before we went live. So this challenge is already live on Instagram at Strengths Talk. Just swipe through them. And what you're going to see is if you're high in command, here's 3 ways that you can not just think about it as potential, but really drive it toward performance. And what's nice is one of these has to do with exactly what, Jim, you were just talking about, of know your audience. So again, command isn't just plowing through things, it's finding that laser beam approach to move people forward. So the first challenge, if you have high command, is to list all of the things you see yourself leading in the future. There's a great leadership element. It's about moving a group of people towards something. So just give yourself some opportunity to dream a little bit. And you don't have to share all those things, but sit down and do that. What are all the things that you know that you could lead in the future? Number 2, get to know your audience. Read a book or a magazine that's popular with an audience that you're influencing. So really, touch into what they're interested in. That might mean find an autobiography of a culture that you're working with and read that, or it might mean figure out what people are paying attention to and get in there. And number 3, find or name a personal mission that you stand for and find a way to lend your voice to it. So, and do it actually. Take a stand this week on something that's important to you. That might mean commenting on social media on something that otherwise you wouldn't have, or it might mean volunteering, some time. So, number 3 is find something that's important to you and stand up for it. Just practice once.
We'd love to hear your success and how you're working on this in our Facebook group. So head over there, hashtag it with command, just so we know what we can go back and, in fact, all the challenges, because many of you listen to these after the fact, right? You're listening to it maybe a week or a month or 2 months or a year later. You can still go out there and drop those in there, hashtag it command. We'd love to hear from you. All right, a new thing that we've been doing. How about with the lesser theme challenge?
Yep. So if you don't have command, if command is a lesser theme for you, what we want to give you is the opportunity to understand perhaps how you get to similar outcomes by using the themes that you do have dominant. So if command is a lesser theme, you can participate in the lesser theme challenge. 3 ideas for you that way too. I haven't posted those, but I will on Instagram at Strengths Talk as well. And you can just comment there, or you can take it to Facebook, as Jim mentioned, with hashtag command. The lesser theme challenge. Number 1, I want to know which themes you do have that give you certainty and resolve. Number 2, recall a recent argument or a conflict and go through and list the reasons that the other people may have had differing viewpoints than you. Maybe it's their information was different. Maybe it's that their experience was different. Really just give yourself that reflection space to think, what was the last time that I experienced conflict, and what was the cause of just differing viewpoints? And then number 3, I'd like you to think about a future state. I want you to think in the next week, when is a time that you have to have either a critical conversation or make a critical decision? And think about how you can best prepare for it. Because without command, you're probably going to be better in those critical moments if you've prepared. So think about the themes that you do have. Your best preparation might be to talk to other people, might be to research alternatives, might be to list out the milestones that you want to execute on. So give yourself some space to really do that. So number 3 is carve out some time to prepare for a critical moment in your own best way.
Yeah, we've also posted these. If you didn't get them all, one, you can rewind and go back and listen to them again if you want to. Write them down. We've posted these to the post for this program if it's already been posted on our blog, and then Maika lists them out on Instagram as well. They're available out there. You can swipe through those and see all 3 of them that are listed out there. Maika, I want to call the community out a little bit. Let me exercise a little command here and just be bold for a second. So, we ask the community to get involved all the time. Come out to the Facebook page. And some of the least used posts, I'm not going to lie, some of the least amount of feedback we get is on these challenges that we've been doing. But then we have some posts out there that all of a sudden lurkers, I know you're on Facebook lurking. I get that you're out there. We have 10,000 people on our Facebook group, Maika, 10,000, almost 11 at this point. And all of a sudden every once in a while, there'll be a post that will come out. It'll be maybe something negative or whatever. We do a price change on something or whatever. And everybody puts their opinion in. But on these really good challenges that you put out there, we struggle to get interaction. We struggle to get results. So let me challenge you, community. I'm calling you out. We would love to see the success that you're having with some of these challenges. I want you to be engaged as much with the positive posts, these good opportunities. We want to hear as much from you on those as we're hearing from some of the other ones. Jump in there, quit lurking, and start participating. So
amen.
There's a little practice.
Funny you say you're bold. I still feel a lot of woo in that one. But you know what?
I want people to like me.
I will say, often we get asked for, hey, I've taken CliftonStrengths and I get it, but I don't really know what to do with it. Or how do I know my communication style? Or how do I know my leadership style? Guys, these challenges are that answer. We have custom created them to help you move from naming your strengths to investing in your strengths. And I'm very mindful when I'm writing them that it's not just how to dial it down or how to make it more palatable for other people, because that isn't the idea of CliftonStrengths. The idea is dial it up, invest in it, see these as your greatest opportunities to be world class. And you can't do that without thinking about it on purpose. Not only have we given you something to think about, we've given you something to do. So there, we both got a little commandy on our challenges.
Oh, I like that. Megan asks, can you pin the challenge post to the top of the Facebook group each week?
Ooh.
Megan, We can't actually, because we have a lot of other, like we have a whole bunch of things that we post throughout the week. So we're hashtagging these. I really need you to kind of work with the group. They're all out there. What's amazing to me is people find posts that are buried like 17 or 18 deep and they reemerge them. And I'm like, oh, I haven't seen that one in a while, but it's come back. So we will put those out there. They're in the threads. I'll do what I can, Megan. I appreciate that feedback. We'll do what we can to do that. Really what it's going to take a little bit is spending 5 minutes reading through what's current, being notified of posts that are out there. Just participate. Can't do it all for you. Can't read them for you.
We can give you a lot of help.
There's a lot of things we want to emphasize. There's lots of things going on. And so we appreciate your support in doing that. Not trying to call you out, but in some ways I am. Appreciate what you guys are doing out there. Like you to be a part of the community. It's just a ton of fun. And really, at the end of the day, I just want you to like me. Let's just be let's be really clear about that one. Maika, we'll do another one here next week. Any final thoughts on Command?
Just that it's really beautiful. Sometimes Command feels out of control. Oh, we should mention in our previous seasons, we talk about it being the least common theme. It's been unseated. Think about it that way.
Self-assurance.
The least common theme. Now it's self-assurance. Both of those, I think, are so needed. Self-assurance is the ability to say, I know my abilities and I know what I'm not good at and I can do what I'm good at. What a beautiful, beautiful theme, right? Command is that ability to today to say, hey, I know where we need to go. Let's go there. So if you have them, we need you to invest in them because we need them to be great because they're rare.
Right on. Well, we appreciate you guys coming out. Remind everyone to take full advantages of all the resources we have available at the Gallup Strength Center. And there's a ton out there, by the way. GallupStrengthCenter.com. Send your questions or comments. If you'd like to be a guest blogger, we take those into consideration. If you've got a post in your head, 400 to 600 words, something around strengths, we'd love it to be around success that you've had with those strengths. Send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. Put guest blogger in the subject line. That'll make its way to Maika, and we will consider you for the blog. You can also catch the recorded audio and video of this program, as well as all the past ones. So again, we call that podcasting. Lots of different podcast apps. No excuse if you have an iPhone. They have a podcast app right on the front page. You can just subscribe to us. Search for Theme Thursday, and you can subscribe to this. Put Call to Coach in there while you're at it as well. If you're on Android, it's a little more complicated. Google's doing some things to make that better, but we have all the links available to you at the Coach's blog on the Resources tab. So on your phone, go to coaching.gallup.com. I'll wait while you do that. Pick up your phone, go to coaching.gallup.com. There's a little drop down, choose the Resources tab, and then all the little buttons for Android are right there if you want to subscribe to the shows. A great way to get it every week and not miss an episode. If you're interested in becoming a Gallup Certified Strengths Coach, you can see a list of all of our courses that lead to that, courses.gallup.com. Or if you haven't signed up to join us for our Clifton Strengths Summit of 2018, it's not too late. CliftonStrengthsSummit.com. Love to have you come out. There's still a place for you. It's filling, Mike, it's filling up fast. We're just about at 1,100 at this point, and I think they're going to cap it at 14. So make sure if you haven't signed up, you've been waiting, get signed up now. Join us on our Facebook page. I mentioned that earlier. It's really called Gallup Webcast, but you get to it by going to facebook.com/groups/call-to-coach. That's the name of it. And we'd love to have it. It'll say Gallup Webcast when you get there. Just ask for permission, and I will let you in. We'll look forward to the next Theme Thursday. Stay around for the post show if you're listening live. And with that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.